Google has been saying this for a long time, that they want your pages to load fast because a fast loading page typically translates to a better user experience and they will rank your pages higher. In 2021, they rolled out a page experience update which uses PageSpeed and other metrics like the Core Web Vitals as a ranking factor. But don't be too caught up with getting a pass on a Core Web Vitals assessment or a 100 on the performance rating on PageSpeed Insights, because it will not get you anywhere. At the end of the day, it is the depth of your content and how well it serves your audience that will help your page rank higher. But regardless, page speed is still important, not only for ranking purposes, but also for your audience. If your page takes 5 to 10 seconds to load, I might be thinking, is this page spam? So let me help you understand how to use Google PageSpeed Insights to boost your page speed. Let's go. Hey, it's Jack from RankMath, the one tool that provides easy to use SEO and AI tools, and this channel provides you with tips, tricks, and tutorials to help you grow your search traffic. So if you're new to us, consider subscribing. Alright, now let's go to the PageSpeed Insights. The easiest way to get to PageSpeed Insights is to search for it on Google. Look for the result with this pagespeed.web.dev URL. Click on it and you are now on PageSpeed Insights. Alternatively, if you are logged into your WordPress site and you have RankMath installed, on the page you want to assess, you will have this front-end stats bar where you can immediately assess the page speed score. Or if you want to go directly to PageSpeed Insights from here, hover to RankMath SEO, then External Tools, and select Google PageSpeed. The assessment on PageSpeed will automatically start. But let's go back to before the assessment starts and you will see this. It is a very simple user interface, and the only thing you can do here is to add the URL you wish to analyze for page speed. So let's analyze the home page from WP Rocket, since they are a plugin that helps with solving page speed issues. Let's copy the URL, paste it here and analyze. So the first thing you will notice is the toggle between mobile and desktop. By toggling these tabs, you will know how the page performs on the two devices. But our focus should always be on mobile. Not because it is harder to optimize than desktop, but because most people spend their time on the web with a mobile device. Next, the PageSpeed Insights is separated into two sections. The first section will show you what your users are experiencing. You might hear people referring to this as field data because that's what it was called. The second section is the diagnosed performance issues section, which some will refer to as the lab data or the Google Lighthouse data. Now you might be confused between these two sets of data because at the top it tests for largest Contentful paint, it is showing 1.6 seconds, but in the lab or Lighthouse data, it is showing a different result. The same goes for first Contentful paint. As you can see, it is showing 1.6 seconds here in the field data, while it is showing 1.1 seconds in the lab data. So both are similar metrics with different data. Let me explain the differences. The field data aims to capture real user data by collecting and aggregating anonymized data from Google Chrome users who have visited your site. So for the past 28 days, your site visitors who use Google Chrome with a mobile device, their loading speed and interactivity will be captured in the Chrome UX report, or in short, CRUX. And with all the data and samples collected, PageSpeed Insights will average the data out and displays them here. However, for the lab or Lighthouse data, it simulates a user visiting your page in a controlled environment with specific hardware and network conditions, such as it will simulate a person using a mid-tier device on a mobile network visiting the page, and it will assess the page based on these metrics. So the first section is real-world data, while the second section is simulated data. So if you're wondering why your Core Web Vitals are failing, but your Lighthouse data is in tip-top shape, now you know why. And for the purpose of optimization, you should be optimizing your page based on the Lighthouse data or lab data, because an improved performance here will eventually lead to an improvement in the field data, because it takes about 28 days to see the effect of your optimization. Alright, now that we know there are two sets of data in PageSpeed Insights, let's understand the metrics in the field data. Now, the reason why I didn't call this entire section as Core Web Vitals is because currently only the top 3 metrics are considered Core Web Vitals. If we click on this expand view, we can see that these 3 metrics are Core Web Vitals, while the rest are notable metrics, and this is an experimental metric. But let's understand each of these metrics one at a time. Let's start with the largest contentful paint. What this metric assesses is the time taken for the largest element of your page to load. For example, if this is your page, what do you think is the largest element? It is going to be the image, right? So this largest contentful paint assesses how long this largest element loads. If the largest contentful paint is 2.5 seconds or less, it is considered good, and the metric will be highlighted in green. If it is between 2.5 seconds and 4 seconds, it needs improvement and it will be highlighted in orange. And if your page loads more than 4 seconds, then your largest contentful paint will be poor and in red. So if the largest contentful paint is an image, you will need to employ image optimization techniques like resizing the image dimension, reducing the image file size to below 250 kilobytes, and using modern image formats like AVIF or WebP. And if it is a video, you will probably need to reduce the file size by compressing it. But in our opinion, the best largest contentful element to have on your page is text because it is the fastest loading. If you don't know what is the largest contentful element, PageSpeed Insights will provide you with the information. Just go to the lab data and under the diagnostics, you will find the largest contentful paint element. Click to expand it and you will see what it is. In this case, it is the text element. Next, we have interaction to next paint. If we check out how Google explains it by clicking on that, it says that the metric assesses the page responsiveness. So whether an item you add to an online shopping cart is actually being added, whether a mobile navigation menu has opened when you have clicked on it, and fast, and so on. And right below it, it will show you a good and bad example. A good example will be a click and an immediate response from the element. And a bad example will be a click and there are some latency between the click and the responsiveness, as you can see. So if the interaction to next paint is equal or less than 200 milliseconds, it means the page has good responsiveness. If the INP is between 200 milliseconds to 500 milliseconds, it means your page responsiveness needs improvement. And if it is greater than 500 milliseconds, it means your page has poor responsiveness. Next is the cumulative layout shift. The best analogy is actually from Google. Imagine you are on the checkout page and you accidentally selected 56 items. You didn't intend to buy them, but oh no, you just placed an order for all those items. That's the result of a shift in elements. So this cumulative layout shift assesses how much your element shifts after it is being loaded. For cumulative layout shift, a score of 0.1 or less is a good score. Between 0.1 to 0.25 means it needs improvement, and anything above 0.25 means it is poor. If your page has poor cumulative layout shift, you may want to find out if you have dynamically injected content such as ads, embeds, iframes, etc. Typically, if you want to add any of these elements, you want to factor in a placeholder for the element so that there is a dedicated space for the element to load, regardless of the shape and dimensions. This is a little technical, so you may need to engage a web designer to help you out. Then you also want to make sure that your images have explicit height and width. If you need a quick fix for this, you may want to use a tool like WP Rocket because it has this image dimension settings where it will add missing width and height attributes to images. With a simple check, it will improve the cumulative layout shift score drastically. The first contentful paint is the time taken for the first object on the page to load. This gives an indicator to the user that the page is still loading instead of making them feel that it is not responding. If the first object takes a long time to load, it creates a negative user experience. Like I've said earlier, if a page takes too long to load, you'll be second guessing if you have made the right decision visiting this page, right? So to get a good first contentful paint score, if the first object displays within 1.8 seconds, it is considered good. Between 1.8 to 3 seconds, it needs improvement. And anything above 3 seconds is considered poor. For most people, they think the web server is the main cause for a poor first contentful paint, but to be honest, It is not about the web server, it is more about the theme, the plugins you use, and the page elements you have on the page. And let me take this opportunity to share with you a speed optimization video we have done to help improve your page speed. Feel free to check that out right here, the link is in the description. The video was done some time ago, but the content is still relevant. However, if I could go back, there is only one thing I would change. The recommended image width was 800 pixels, I would change it to 1200 pixels because that's one of the criteria for getting your content on Google Discover. Other than that, everything is still relevant. Alright, first input delay is a metric that measures a page's responsiveness during load. In other words, when a page is loading, how fast are you able to perform the next task, like clicking a link or a button? I know it might be a little technical for beginners, so let me explain it in layman's terms. Imagine you are visiting a store. First input delay is like the time it takes for the salesperson to greet you after you walk in. In terms of a web page, the first input delay is the delay between you clicking a button and trying to interact something on a page, like you walking into a store, and then the web page actually responding to your action, the salesperson coming to greet you. A long first input delay feels like the salesperson is taking forever to greet you. I hope it is easy for you to understand. Don't worry, I'll put everything together in a while. As you can see, a good timing for first input delay is below 100 milliseconds. Between 100 to 300 milliseconds, your page will be flagged with needs improvement. And anything above 300 milliseconds, you'll be flagged with poor. And it is safe to say that a majority of pages on the web are getting a good score for this metric. Now, this first input delay is a metric only for the field data because it requires real users interacting with the site to measure it. As you can see in the lab data, there is no first input delay metric. However, in the lab data, the metric that measures the interactivity of a page is through the total blocking time, which we'll talk about in a while. Finally, we have the time to first byte metric. It is a metric that measures the time it takes before you start to see anything loading on the page. In other words, it measures how long it takes for the server to send the very first piece of information back to your browser. A good score is below 0.8 seconds and it shouldn't go any longer than 1.8 seconds. So putting it all together, we know the largest Contentful paint is the time it takes for the largest element on the page to load. The cumulative layout shift measures how much an element shifts after it is being displayed on the screen. Now, in terms of the interactivity metrics like the interaction to next pane, first Contentful paint, first input delay, and time to first byte, for beginners, it might still be confusing. So let me put them together in a scenario. Imagine you have just typed something into the browser, for example, rankmath.com. What happens is the browser will send a request to RankMath's web server, and then it will take some time for the server to send the requested elements to be displayed on the browser. The time between the browser sending the request to the server and then the server responding back to the browser sending the first byte of information, that is how the time to first byte is measured. So every JavaScript, image, CSS or whatever carries a file size. Maybe an image carries 200 kilobytes. So when the server responds with the first byte of information to the browser, that is what the time to first byte means. Then between the time where the page loads to the first object displayed on the screen, that's the first Contentful paint. Now, first input delay can happen at any time even after the page fully loads. It only starts to measure when a person or a site visitor actually interacts with the page, for example, clicking on a link. Now, first input delay measures the browser's internal processing. So between the time when the person clicks to when the browser starts to process that click, in between that time frame, it is captured as first input delay. It does not measure any visible change to the browser. And then the interaction to next paint is very similar to first input delay, but it takes a broader view. It measures the entire time from the user interaction to the next visual change on the screen caused by the interaction. So imagine you are in a restaurant and you raise your hand asking the waiter to fill your water. From the time your hand is raised to when the waiter acknowledges you, that's the first input delay. But interactive to next paint takes into account the total time it takes from you raising your hand to the waiter acknowledging you. He walks over to the counter to take water, walks over to your table to fill the cup. That's interactive to next paint. Hope this analogy is simple enough. Alright, one last thing to talk about the view data is the toggle between this URL and origin. As you can see, the result changes as we toggle it. So when this URL is selected, it is clear that this set of data relates to this URL. But for origin, it means the results have been averaged across all pages on the site. The reason they do this is because there are some pages on a site that do not get as many page visits, and hence the URL that you enter here may not have the data. For example, if we do an analysis on one of WP Rocket's pages, you will see that this URL option is blocked off. That's because this page isn't getting enough traffic for their assessment. And when you click on this tooltip, it says exactly what I meant. That's why they are displaying the average result of the entire site instead. Now, if your entire site is not getting enough traffic for the past 28 days, then you will not see any view data. Alright, we will now shift our focus to the lab or Lighthouse data. And remember, these are simulated data, media device on a mobile network. Over here, you will see the performance audit, the accessibility audit, best practices, and SEO. I will walk you through one at a time, starting with the performance audit. So right at the top, you will see an overall page speed performance score. You will see a green indicator only if you have achieved a score of 90 or more. Between 50 to 89, the indicator will be in orange, and anything below 50 will be in red. And right beside the indicator, you will see a snapshot of the above the fold content. Above the fold content simply means every element such as text, images, or whatever you see on a screen when it is first loaded. Any elements that are displayed after that are below the fold content. If you are doing optimization, such as you have made some changes to a page, normally I will add a small indicator just in case the accessed URL is still in the cached version and the metrics will not be accurate and updated. For example, if I started working on this page and I did a first analysis on the page, and after that I made some changes to the page, I want to make sure that the updates are captured. So I will put a little indicator here. This indicator must be above the fold, and when I update, and then I will test this page again. If I check the snapshot and the indicator is captured, it means that the metric here includes my adjustments on the page. I hope this tip is useful to you. Anyway, we have talked about the first Contentful paint, the largest Contentful paint, as well as the cumulative layout shift. But what is total blocking time? So imagine the main thread is the main worker in the factory. It is responsible for handling critical tasks like parsing HTML, render content, processing user input, and more. And then out of these critical tasks, there are some long tasks that takes longer than 50 milliseconds to complete on the main thread. Think of them as complex jobs that take a while for the worker to finish. When he is doing complex tasks, he has to focus on them. Now, the blocking time measures the time it takes for the long task to complete, as it is blocking the main thread from doing anything else. This means the browser can't respond to user interactions like click, tabs, or scrolling. So normally if you fail this test, it means your page might have a lot of complex JavaScripts to complete. And the fastest and easiest way to reduce the blocking time is to minify JavaScript files and defer or delay JavaScript execution. If you use a tool like WP Rocket under the File Optimization tab, you can improve the total blocking time by checking this minify JavaScript files. And as soon as you check that, you have a notification that this could break things. So what you want to do is to activate this setting only, save the setting, and then you want to clear the cache of your site. Visit a couple of pages on your site to make sure that all your web elements are in place and where they should be. If nothing on your site breaks, then it is safe to keep this setting on. And then you can combine JavaScript files as well. You go through the same process again just to make sure that nothing breaks. And if anything breaks, you know that this is the setting that causes it. If something breaks, just uncheck it. And then you can load JavaScript deferred, and you can specify which JavaScript files to exclude from being deferred. And you can delay JavaScript execution as well, so that it will not block the main thread from completing its task. However, if you want any of these elements to load first when your page loads, you can check the appropriate task. You can defer the loading from plugins as well as themes. So this setting gives you total control over which elements to defer and which to load first. And all these settings will help with the total blocking time. So that's for total blocking time. Now let's talk about speed index. So this speed index measures how quickly the above the fold content becomes visually displayed. It is as straightforward as that. So if the rest of the metrics are performing well, generally the speed index will perform well. Now the cool thing about PageSpeed Insights is that as you hover to the indicator, it will show you the metrics you should be focusing on to create the most impact on your page performance. For example, on this page, as we hover to the indicator, it will show me that I should be working on the total blocking time to make the most impact on the performance score. And if we scroll down, we will see these optimization opportunities, and they are categorized based on the metric you should work on. So earlier we need to work on total blocking time, so we will click on that. And these are the optimization opportunities you can work on. So let's say that we will optimize the site with WP Rocket. Assuming nothing breaks on the site, as we save changes, let's clear the cache. Currently the performance score is 69. As we do the test again, now the score becomes 99 and most of the issues are fixed and it doesn't seem that anything is breaking on the site. Now in any case, if you want to learn more about how to solve a particular issue, say you want to learn how to serve images in next-gen formats, you can simply click to expand it and you will see that PageSpeed Insights is recommending to use either the Performance Lab plugin or enable Imagify from the Image Optimization tab in WP Rocket to convert your images to WebP. These recommendations are also available in other optimization opportunities. So that's for the performance metrics, and again, we have a dedicated video that shares with you some helpful tips to optimize your page speed. Do check it out in the description. Now let's talk about the remaining audits. Google wants to create an all-inclusive environment to allow even the visually impaired to view web pages. So the accessibility audit will look at things like if buttons have any descriptive labels that will help people who use screen readers to understand it, or if there is a clear contrast between the background and foreground colors. And then as for the best practices audit, it focuses on audits that ensure your website follows modern development standards for speed, security, and overall user experience. And then the SEO audit will check for factors like if the structured data on your page is valid or any other factors that will help search engines understand and index your website, such as if a page is not blocking from being indexed, has a title and meta description, and all these other factors. If you follow our on-page SEO checklist, you would have passed the SEO audit in Lighthouse, as it is even more in-depth than Lighthouse. Now, one more last thing which I find useful is if you want to send this entire report to either your team, your web developer, or web consultant, you can simply click on this copy link and send it to someone else. So if the recipient clicks on the link, they will get the exact report you were working on earlier. So that's the complete walkthrough of the Google PageSpeed Insights. Now, if you have any questions at all or you have any issues with optimizing for an audit, feel free to let us know in the comments. We will try our very best to help you out. And if you found this video helpful, help us out by smashing that thumbs up. Anyway, if you haven't subscribed to us, we are all about sharing tips, tricks, and tutorials on how to grow your search traffic. So do consider subscribing. This is Jack from RankMath. I'll see you in the next video.